What's up, world? Thanks for jumping in for another ride. We have been doing some brake maintenance on the 2018 Ford Edge Sport, and upon further inspection, the inside pad on the rear brakes are absolutely shot, so it's time for a brake job on the 2018 Ford Edge Sport. So as we were doing a brake fluid flush on the 2018 Ford Edge, we took the opportunity to go ahead and just do a good inspection on the overall condition of the brake system. The inside brake pad is absolutely shot. It's paper thin. So now that we've identified that, we're gonna go ahead and do our brake fluid flush as intended. That video is down in the description. So now that we've seen this issue, we're gonna go ahead and proceed like we intended to and go ahead and do that brake fluid flush. But at the same time, while we're doing this, we're gonna go ahead and install fresh brake pads on the rear of our 2018 Ford Edge. And while we're at it, I think we're gonna visit some local friends here in the Kaufman area, and that is a place called Motor Parts Plus. It is a local auto parts store. And these guys are absolutely legitimate. There is no corporate fluff there. These guys are the real deal. They actually have a legitimate machine shop in the back of the auto parts store, and they still do some absolutely cool stuff, and it's old school. And so this is a very cool place for a gearhead to visit. So we'll go check out Motor Parts Plus. Now, why I mention that is we are actually going to take our rear brake rotors up there with us, and these guys do not do the guessing game. They can actually mic our rotors. They have a legitimate machine shop that can machine out our rotors and get them all back into spec as long as there is still enough material left on the rotors. And that'll save us a ton of money versus purchasing new rotors without needing to. And then our OE rotors end up going in a junk pile for no reason. So at the end of the day, as a vehicle owner, it's gonna save you a ton of money. Plus it just keeps something from going in the recycle bin that isn't due there just yet. So now that we've identified this, let's go ahead and get the rear brakes apart on the 2018 Ford Edge Sport. All right, I wanted to show you that you can see that inner pad on the passenger side, and it is completely smoked. I've got that driver's side tore apart. Let's run over there real quick. I'm going to show you that. I just wanted to point out this driver's side and why inspecting both sides is absolutely critical when you're doing something like this. You can see that there is plenty of pad left on that inner pad on the driver's side, which immediately tells me that we have probably got a sticking pin or something mechanical going on in the caliper, causing that premature wear on that inner pad on that passenger side brake. So I'm gonna go ahead and get it apart and see what we got, but we are going to go ahead and service both sides just to get us back up and running correctly. All right, now that we've done the inspection on both sides of this and we know that we have definitely got a mechanical issue over here, I don't think it's gonna be any sort of fluid flow issue or anything like that. I'm pretty sure it's probably gonna be pins. That's normally the culprit with these situations. I'm gonna go ahead and get this side apart so we can get parts picked up for this thing. With that really quick, I wanna say, make sure that you put the system into brake maintenance mode, engage the EPBS or the emergency park brake system. I'll put a link down in the description below. We have a video basically walking you right through that. So that is very important. Make sure that you don't tear up any of the EPBS motors with this. It's super simple to engage and disengage maintenance mode. I want to say that up front, make sure that you do that. We're in maintenance mode, so we are good to go. Step one, on the back side of these plastic caps, top and bottom, you're just gonna have these little plugs. So there's the second one, just so you know what they look like. And I just used a very small screwdriver, got on the edge of them, popped them right out. So, and then we're gonna go ahead and pull out our slider pin bolts. Should be up inside of there. All right, so the slider bolt pins are going to be a 1/4 inch, and it is basically just an Allen head. So just want to let you know that that is a 1/4, at least mine is anyway. I don't know if any year models may be different. I've gone ahead and broke the torque on the top one, and then I moved down, broke the torque on the lower pin slider bolt here. And I'm gonna go ahead and get it out first. That way, just in case it wants to move around any at all. I don't think it will, but at least I'll have that top bolt still in. And then I can figure out how I'm gonna get this thing slid up. Hopefully it's not stuck in any way. Okay, so those slider pins, top and bottom, I went ahead and just broke those loose and I got them moving, and that is what we used our Allen head for. And the reason why I did that is I wanted to get those loose before I got my caliper off. And I know there's probably some Ford tech out there telling me right now that I'm doing this completely wrong. I've never done this before, so I'm basically just walking through this from past experience and a little bit of common sense. Probably know just about enough to get me in trouble here. But with that, as I'm getting myself in trouble here, the two mounting bolts are gonna be down low right there. And there's gonna be one up at the top right there. And so take those two bolts out, and they are a 15 millimeter and a deep well will work just fine. You could probably also use a shallow with an extension. So I'm gonna go ahead and get those 2 bolts off, and that should allow us to move our caliper around, and we can go ahead and get everything ready to run up to the parts store. All right, so I got our 2 mounting bolts out for the caliper. I did have to kind of give it a little tap right here on the ears, on that flat spot. I was very careful. As you can see, it literally didn't even leave a mark on it. I used a brass hammer. Do not use anything solid. You don't want to break pieces off the caliper or anything, but it was pretty bound up on there, and I'm sure just because of the heat cycles with that pad. And you can see that that inner pad is completely shot, it's glazed over. So I'm gonna get that apart. And then as far as the rotor goes, you can see all of the debris down on the lift. So basically the way that's gonna work is just take a brass hammer. If you have a regular ball peen, it'll work fine. A brass won't mess up your threads or anything. If you slip, not a big deal. And basically you just wanna hit the face of it, and you're gonna have to put some effort into it. So just hit the face of it while you're gently pulling around the rotor, and it will come loose. You can see all the debris that came out of it. We're gonna clean all this up, get this ready to go back together. The bolts for the caliper mounting, they did have quite a bit of blue Loctite on them, so they took some pretty good effort to get off of there. Not the end of the world. What I did was just put my ratchet on and then do the old cheap thing. Hook a long handled wrench to it, get some leverage, good to go there. So the cool thing about this is just kind of weird side random thing, that the rear A-arms where the spring perch and everything is, the caliper will literally sit right down on top of it. So there's no reason to have to like over the top tie up anything. Normally I'll use a coat hanger to hang it like from a strut tower or a shock tower or something like that, but it literally just sits right on the A-arm. So that is basically everything to the basic disassembly point. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the pads out of this thing, get the rotor off of this thing. I need to get moving up to the auto parts store, so I'll take you along with as much detail as I can if you're doing this on your own, you know, shop, driveway, garage, whatever. Let me go ahead and get the pads out, and then I'll check back in with you as I kind of get everything wrapped up to the disassembly stage. All right, big shout out to the guys over at Motor Parts Plus in Kaufman, Texas. It is absolutely getting late on a Saturday afternoon, and the normal machinist is out today, so these guys were a lifesaver. They came through, got our rotors turned, got everything back in spec. So we're going to load these things up and head back out to the shop. So again, a thank you to Motor Parts Plus in Kaufman, Texas. All right, after we got back from Motor Parts Plus last night, I did a couple of small things, so I will show you exactly where I'm at and kind of what I did. Let me grab the camera and catch you up on everything that I've got going on here. I've kind of laid everything out so I can try to remember, so don't beat me up too bad. If there's something I forgot, I may have to circle back and kind of fill you in as I go on this. Okay, so late yesterday evening or last night after we got back from Motor Parts Plus, I just used a small brass brush and I knocked the heavy rust off the front, the face here of the machine rotor, also the inside of it, of that face there. You can see it's kind of cleaned up. Not absolutely perfect, but I do want to show you the machine surface that Motor Parts Plus did there. The machining came out absolutely fantastic. So both rotors are the same. So just for clarification, once we get these set up on our hubs, what we will do is use some brake clean. Make sure that we wipe down all of our friction surface and make sure that that's good and clean. Also on the hubs, you can see a very, very light coat of anti-seize. So I just used same brass brush, knocked off any heavy residual rust. That way the rotor won't be stuck to this again. What I like to do for these is just put a very small dot of anti-seize on the tip of my glove, put it in between each stud, and then smear it in really good. And then what I'll actually do is just take a cheap white paper towel, just any big box store paper towel, and do a very light brush over it. And basically all you're doing is just making that surface protected from rust. You don't want any chance of building up or any mounds up around your studs, anything like that. Around this mating corner right here. You don't want anything that can throw off your rotor. So just make sure that it's very thin. And as you can see, you can basically see the sheen of the metal behind that layer. So that is good to go with our anti-seize. Then I have just got a drain pan way over there because I've been working on that side. But I just used a little bit of brake cleaner, some cheap white paper towels, wiped my dust cover down, and had my drain pan under here. So just got the dust cover wiped off really quick. That is basically where I stopped last night. This morning, I went ahead and got out my brake caliper tool, and this tool that I've got is a Mac, and you absolutely do not need anything quite like this. You don't need anything super over the top, anything like that for your tools. I just really like this Mac tool that I've had. I've had it for a lot of years, but you can basically use just a good sturdy C-clamp and a couple of blocks of wood. The reason why I stopped here is I just wanted to point out to you that you can see the boot right there for our caliper piston. So as this goes in, what you're going to want to do is make sure that that boot goes in good and square and everything is straight. And if you see any binding or pinching anything on this rubber boot, stop and back everything off and make sure that you get that boot going in square. So once I get my piston all the way back in and I know that my boot is square, all that fun stuff, I'm going to use a soft bristle plastic brush. I will get my drain pan, put it back down underneath the caliper, and I'll use a little bit of brake clean, and I'll go ahead and just give this a quick nothing over the top, just any heavy residue on it. I want to knock all that off. I do want to mention that I did remove these mounting bolts, and the reality of that situation is you may not need to do that. Literally all you may need to do is just remove the 2 sliders and the caliper will come out. I ended up removing mine because I was kind of curious what was going on, but since I had that brake pad stuck, that basically the caliper was really stuck on. And so referencing back, like I said, I had to take a brass hammer and kind of tap against the flat part of these ears here and here to get the caliper to move. So it was basically just stuck onto the rotor. So that was the reason why it wouldn't come off with just those slider pins removed. So with that, for your personal experience, you could probably just get away with removing those. At the end of the day, those mounting bolts are just 2 extra bolts. It's definitely not the end of the world, not a big deal. Like I've said, I'm not a professional Ford tech, and this is the first Ford Edge that I did. And with that caliper being basically stuck on there, I wanted to make sure that I was kind of going slow and being cautious about what I was doing. So with that, you could definitely probably save yourself some time by just removing the top and bottom sliders. And now that gets us over to the sliders themselves. And so I think I know the culprit that got us into this situation to begin with. And so you can see the corrosion on the end of that slider pin, and you can see it's kind of got some marks just from that housing on that slider, but that corrosion is the real culprit right there. And so what I've done up to this point is I've gone ahead and just put a paper towel on the backside here, sprayed some brake clean through there. I want to clean this up really good. And then I'm going to take a fine bristle wire wheel and I'm going to clean this up really good. I don't want to remove any material off of it. I just want to get all of the corrosion that I possibly can off of this thing. And then I'm going to use some brake grease and make sure that I can get this through and make sure that it moves smooth. And the reason I'm like 99% sure that this is the culprit is the fact that I had to take a small screwdriver and push it all the way out. So that tells me that this was definitely sticking without a doubt. I'm going to get the top one out and check that. Make sure that we're good to go there. If I need to clean it up, get some grease on it, etc., I'm going to do that. So that is basically the 5,000 foot overview as to where I'm at. And I hope this helps you out with your brake service and identifying any issues that you may have going on. We can go ahead and get this piston pushed all the way back in. Make sure that it is fully in with our boot good and square. And we'll go ahead and clean up this slider pin. So I'll see you over at the wire wheel. All right, let's get our little slider pin cleaned up. So this is super simple. So we're just going to use the wire brush and we're going to keep this steadily moving so that we don't build up any heat or anything into our pin. And quick rule of thumb, if you're seeing any sparks, then you're forcing the pin in to the wire brush too hard. So basically all we want to do is just skim our pin right over the top of those bristles. So let's go ahead and get this thing cleaned up. And that should work. I'm going to grab a little bit of grease and we'll see how this thing slides through that caliper bore for the slider pin. And then if this one is good to go, I'll grab the other one and go ahead and knock it out. So we got that pin that I'm pretty sure was sticking. We got it all cleaned up on the wire wheel. And as you can see, it's hanging out of the bore there. And I did put it inside of the bore dry. So basically no grease on it at first. And it was really stiff to move. And so I'm going to be honest here. I was really thinking, am I going to need to take like a piece of fine grit emery cloth and clean up that pin? But patient, slowed down, thought about it, Went ahead and put some brake specific grease on it, and boom, man, it is silk smooth. So no issues there. You can see I probably got a little too much grease on it. I may take it back out. That is really what we're looking for, is more of that layer, not that giant gob layer right there. It's probably a little carried away, but you get the idea. So with that, I did forget to mention a couple of things earlier. While I was at Motor Parts yesterday, I did pick up some brake specific grease. So no anti-seize on this. And the reason why is anti-seize, if it has any sort of a specific like rubber sleeves, boots, anything like that, the anti-seize can kind of degrade or cause some of those rubber components to swell if they're not really compatible. So the brake specific grease will absolutely eliminate that. It's made for this. It's made for extremely high temperatures. I think this stuff says like -30 to like 3,000 degrees or something ridiculous. So kind of a weird peach color right there, but it is what it is. So the guys over at Motor Parts took care of us. I'm going to go ahead and get this top pin out. I'm going to make sure I clean it up. Same situation, get it ready to go. Spray a little brake clean through that bore before I get the grease and the pin back in it. Make sure it's completely dry. Let me wipe my hands off real fast. One thing that I forgot to mention earlier was these spring clips that go in. So to get my tool in, I had to take those spring clips out, and they just go in those holes right there. So I was a little intimidated when I saw that spring clip in there. And so I didn't know if these ends had more of a hook on them. So what I did was I just opened the new package. It had these clips in it, and I could see that they were straight. So no problem whatsoever. Just basically took a pair of pliers, pop, pop, they come right out. So those come out really easy. So when I go back together with it, I can just use my pliers, squeeze it together, pop it back in there. But I did have to get that out to make sure that I could get my pads out. You can see that my boot is all the way back in there, and we are square all the way around. So good to go there on that. It's going smooth, and I'm pretty confident that we found the culprit that caused this issue. So I feel good about the repair. So I know this is a lot of detail for you out there, but if you're running across something weird like this, it's basically just a straightforward mechanical breakdown. All right, Colin has got our caliper all cleaned up for us while I was working over on the driver's side, getting that put together. We have gone ahead, you can see just how bad that was. We have got our pads laid out, and so I wanted to point this out to you. For the inside pad, I'm going to put a very, very, very thin coat of the brake grease on the backside where it rides against that piston. And then also just a little bit of brake grease around this perimeter. Make sure whatever you do that you do not get any brake grease around the actual friction surface of your pads. So I want to make sure that I pointed that out. So I know someone out there may call this out and say that I'm doing it wrong, whatever. So everybody's got their own style of doing things. So if you have a different way of doing it, do whatever works for you. I'm not saying that this is 1000% the correct way that you have to do anything. I just personally like having just a very small amount of brake grease where it rides on that piston. And again, I mean a very small amount. And then I also like to put some where the ears of the mounting surface goes. So obviously we don't need anything here because it's just a big open channel, but I wanted to point that out for you. And once I get it all up in place, I'll kind of show you what I've got going on. But I wanted to make sure that I point that out so that we don't have any more binding or sticking of any components. All right, so we got our pads in there, and that inner pad was a pretty good bear to get in there, and it's just because it's got a spring clip. You can see that little clip right there. It has to be pushed up in there, but up top you can see just how thin that grease is, and that's about how much grease we got on the backside where that piston rides. And so that is our amount of grease. So we are basically there. Our slider pins are loose, or not loose, but they slide freely. How about that? So our slider pins slide freely. So other than that, I think we're good to go ahead and mount up our rotor, get our bolts back in. I think we're good to go on this one. We'll go ahead and get the other side buttoned up also, and we'll let you know how this goes. Don't forget this clip that goes in. I actually had it in, and for some reason it was kind of binding up. It was a little bit of a bear to get the caliper mounted up there with the pads, but I'm going to pop it back in just as soon as I get everything bolted up. And then for our mounting bolts for the primary caliper bracket, since this did have Loctite on it from the factory, I'm going to go ahead and just put a couple of drops of blue Loctite on like so to replace what we broke loose. Not a big deal. Other than that, I'm going to go ahead and put the bolts on, you can see our brake grease in there. You can see there's very little of it. You can see our machine rotors. There we go. That looks much better. Machine rotors. So everything is just sort of hanging here right now. So I'm going to go ahead and get our bolts in, get everything centered up, and get it mounted up. Just want to let you know on the spring clip that was a little bit of a bear, and don't forget your Loctite if you go ahead and take the primary bolts off for the caliper bracket. We have got our rotor all up tight. Again, we got our spring back up there, so don't forget that part. And the easiest way to do this is basically, I just took a pair of pliers, got one end started, pull it in with a pair of pliers, and just use a ball peen hammer if you have to get it tapped up so that the ends of it are flush, but good to go. You can see that holds our pad in place right there. So that answers my question why it was kind of being goofy earlier, but good to go there. And other than that, this is actually kind of impressive. So you can see how free that caliper moves now compared to whenever we took it apart and those slider pins were corroded up. So with that, as soon as we step on the brakes, it's going to start taking all that slack out of it. So I just thought it was kind of ironic how stuck those pins were before. So good to go there. And like I said, step on the brakes, all that slack will be gone. We'll get the tire and wheel mounted up. That'll keep the face of the rotor up tight. So we're good to go here. I'm going to go ahead and button up the driver's side. I feel like I've been wrenching on this thing for a week. So I'll get that side done. I won't bore you with that. You get the 5,000 foot overview from the passenger side. Driver's side is the exact same. So the only thing left to do on the driver's side is everything. All right, so we are still in park brake maintenance mode. So we need to go ahead and disengage that. So with that, accelerate all the way to the floor, park brake up, accessory on, accessory off, accessory back off. All right, so park brake applied. Okay, so our park brake has released. Let's just check it. Park brake activated. Depress pedal, down. Park brake release. What I want to say is, before you do anything as far as putting the vehicle in gear, go ahead and depress the brake pedal, get a feel for it, make sure it's at the top. Make sure you don't have any sort of weird spongy brake pedal. Make sure that your pedal isn't going to the floor. Make sure it's firm, all the normal stuff. Then beyond that, again, don't touch the gear shift. Let's just go ahead and start it. Check the brake pedal. Okay, so the reason for this, why I want to explain this, is if you have a vacuum brake booster or something similar that is sort of like a hydromatic system, there's some different ones out there, in particular some of the New Edge Mustang setups. I want to say go ahead and start it. That way you have full vacuum on your brake booster or whatever system you have going on. The engine needs to be running to make that work. And then go ahead and check your brake pedal again. So as I press the brake a couple of times, the pedal's gotten firmer. It's closer to the top. And then from there, I'm going to go ahead and ease it into gear. Make sure we don't go blasting through any walls or doors. There we go. We have a successful rear brake install.